I used to think I knew my wife. I mean, really knew her. Her routines, her little quirks, the way she hummed while folding laundry, or how she always kissed me on the forehead before bed. We had been married for almost 8 years. We had a son together, a house in the suburbs, and what I thought was a solid, steady life. I never saw the cracks, not until it was too late. Her name's Emily, or at least that's what I'll call her here. She was the kind of woman who always had everything in order. Calendars color-coded, lunches packed the night before, every sock paired perfectly in the drawer. She made motherhood and marriage look easy. But apparently, appearances can be deceiving. That night was supposed to be simple. She said she needed a break, just a night out with the girls. Nothing crazy, just dinner and drinks downtown. I told her to enjoy herself. I stayed home, put our son to bed, and caught up on some work emails while sipping a beer on the couch. I didn't think twice about it. Why would I? I didn't know she'd end up at a club. I didn't know she'd meet him. Some guy who worked security there, tall, broad, tattooed, probably the kind of guy she'd never even glance at if I was around. But that night, with the lights low and tequila fogging up her judgment, she let herself become someone I didn't recognize. From what I pieced together later, it started off innocent. A few flirty looks across the room, a touch here, a whisper there. And then, just like that, they disappeared into the back room, somewhere in the dark where no one was watching. Where she thought the truth could be buried. One night. That's all it took. The next morning, she came back home like nothing happened. She smiled, kissed me on the forehead like always, and made pancakes for breakfast. And I was none the wiser. She looked like the same woman I married. But she wasn't. Not anymore. Weeks went by. Things seemed normal. At least on the surface. But I noticed little things, her being distracted, quieter than usual. I chalked it up to stress or work or maybe just the usual ups and downs of married life. Until the day I found the test. It started with small changes. She said she was tired a lot. Took more naps. Complained about headaches. I thought maybe she was coming down with something. Then she missed her period. I only knew because she mentioned it in passing, brushing it off like it was no big deal. But one morning, while I was at the park with our son, she stayed behind. And that's when she took the test. She didn't tell me. Not then. She buried it. Literally. Tossed the evidence deep into the trash under tissues and wrappers, like hiding it would erase it from reality. But that kind of truth doesn't stay buried forever. I found it a few days later while taking out the garbage. A faint pink line on a crumpled test strip, just barely visible through the clear plastic. I froze. My heart didn't race, it stopped. I stared at that thing for a long time, not because I didn't know what it meant. I knew exactly what it meant. The real question was, how long had she been lying to me? But I didn't confront her. Not yet. I decided to wait. To watch. To see how long she could keep pretending like everything was fine. And let me tell you, there's a kind of power in knowing something someone doesn't think you know. A quiet, cold power. And I used it. That night, I kissed her just like always. We got into bed, her back to me, and she fell asleep in minutes. Or at least she pretended to. Me? I just stared at the ceiling, wide awake, listening to the silence between us stretch wider and colder. And that's when I realized, this wasn't just a betrayal. This was war. Once I knew, once I held that damn pregnancy test in my hand, everything changed. But not on the outside. I still kissed her good morning. Still helped pack our kids' lunch. Still listened to her talk about her day like everything was normal. But inside, I was on fire. You'd think finding something like that would trigger rage or heartbreak or some dramatic explosion. But no. What I felt was colder. More calculated. I didn't want a confrontation. I wanted to watch it all play out. I needed to see what version of reality she'd sell me while I already knew the truth. So I didn't say a word. That silence. It got to her. I could see it. At first, she didn't notice anything was different. But slowly, over days, it started to weigh on her. I saw it in the way her eyes darted when I asked about her day. Or how she jumped a little when I walked into the room too quietly. She thought she was hiding something, But the truth was, she was already unraveling. I became more attentive, more helpful, on purpose. I made dinner, took our son out for longer walks, gave her more space to think, to panic, to spiral. I could see the gears turning in her head. She'd stare off at nothing, chewing the inside of her cheek, like she was waiting for the world to collapse. But I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of yelling. No. I wanted her to break under the weight of her own lie. One night, I stood in the hallway, just watching her put our kid to bed. She didn't see me at first. She was smiling, reading a bedtime story, doing everything right. But then she looked up and saw me standing there. She froze for a second. And that smile, God, that smile faltered just enough for me to know. She was scared. Not of me physically, but scared of what I might know. What I might do. She tried to brush it off with a casual, "Hey, didn't see you there," and I just smiled back. Told her good night. Acted like everything was fine. But that moment stuck with her. After that, she became jumpier, quieter. And then came the night I knew for sure she was losing it. She was in the bathroom. Door closed. Probably thought I was asleep. I wasn't. I got up, walked past the hallway, and there she was, standing in front of the mirror, brushing her hair. I could tell she was deep in thought, barely blinking, like her own reflection was accusing her. And then she looked at her phone. She didn't notice it had been moved. Just a fraction. Enough to make her pause. She picked it up, stared at it, probably thinking, did I lock this? Was this here before? And I watched it hit her, that someone had been in it. Someone being me. I didn't need to find anything. I wasn't looking for proof. I already had it. But I wanted her to feel it. That creeping anxiety that maybe, just maybe, she was being watched. That her secret wasn't as safe as she thought. A few days later, I stood behind her in the kitchen. She was chopping vegetables, lost in her own head again. I stepped closer than usual, close enough that she felt it before she saw me. She jumped. Barely. But enough. You need any help? I asked, soft. Come. She turned around slowly, eyes wide for half a second before she smiled. No, I'm good, she said, voice just a little too cheerful. Her hand was still holding the knife, but it trembled slightly. She didn't notice. I did. I stepped back. Let her breathe. I was in control now. And she knew it. The moment that sealed it, though, that was the trash. Not the test. No, that was weeks ago. What got me was the receipt. I had gone to take out the garbage one night, just like always. But right there, sitting near the top, like someone wanted me to find it, was the pharmacy receipt. The one with the test listed plain as day. She had tried to hide it. Buried it under everything. But somehow, it had resurfaced. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. She didn't just mess up once. She was being haunted by what she'd done. And now, I was the ghost. After I found the receipt, I didn't get angry. I didn't say a word. I just stood there in the garage, trash bag half open, staring at that slip of paper like it had just whispered all her secrets into my ear. I folded it back the way I found it and put it right on top, like a gift. I wanted her to know I knew. Not through yelling, not through accusations. Just through presence. Through silence. And silence, it does something to people. The next few nights were the most satisfying I've ever experienced, in the darkest way possible. She couldn't sleep. I'd hear her breathing shift next to me, restless and uneven, while I lay perfectly still. Pretending to sleep. Pretending not to notice the way she'd sit up, look around, and then lie back down like the weight in her chest wouldn't let her rest. I started leaving little things out. Subtle reminders. A note on the kitchen counter with no name, just a sentence. The truth always finds a way. She found it the next morning. Didn't say a word. But her hands were shaking when she poured her coffee. I watched from behind the paper. Sipped my drink. Smiled. Not out of joy, just power. That's what this had become. She didn't know how much I knew. And I wasn't going to tell her. I was going to let her destroy herself one moment at a time. Everything changed after that. She started acting like a stranger in her own home. tiptoeing around corners, glancing over her shoulder, smiling too hard, laughing a little too loud. I could feel the panic building under her skin, and I did nothing to stop it. Why would I? I was waiting. She started questioning herself. I'd see her look at her phone, open it, close it, then reopen it like something might have changed. Once, I watched her standing in the bathroom with the door cracked. She stared at the mirror so long it looked like she forgot how to breathe. I was down the hall, just out of view, watching. She didn't see me, but I think she felt me. That's the thing. When guilt crawls under someone's skin, it doesn't take much to keep them there. A look, a pause. The way I'd ask, "How was your day?" like it meant something. She'd freeze, overthink, overreact. I didn't have to yell. I didn't even have to raise my voice. I just had to be there. One night, she asked if I needed anything while she folded laundry. Her hands were shaking again. I told her no, that I was good. Then I walked past her just a little too slowly, just close enough to make her hold her breath. That's when I saw it. She wasn't scared of me. She was scared of the mirror I'd become. A reflection of everything she was trying not to face. Later, I woke up around midnight. She was still next to me in bed, but her breathing wasn't steady. Not natural sleep. I turned just slightly and watched her. Eyes closed, lips pressed tight like she was forcing herself not to cry. I knew what she was thinking. Does he know? Is today the day he says something? What is he waiting for? I had her trapped in a prison of her own making. She didn't even realize she'd handed me the keys. And I wasn't letting her out. That's when I made the next move. One day, she said she was going to the store. Just groceries, nothing special. I watched her grab her keys with that fake smile stretched across her face like plastic wrap. The second the door closed behind her, I already knew where she was going. She didn't go to the store. She drove around, aimlessly, until she landed at a park a few miles away. I followed, of course. Stayed back far enough that she wouldn't spot me. Watched her sit on a bench, her hands clenched in her lap, like even the fresh air couldn't untangle the mess in her chest. And then she saw me. Or thought she did. I was across the street, standing still. No sunglasses, no hood. I wanted her to know. Just a flash of eye contact. A second of uncertainty. That was all it took. Her whole body froze. I watched her stand up, stumbling a little as she walked back to her car. When she came home later, I was already in the kitchen making dinner. "How was the store?" I asked, without turning around. "Fine," she said. Her voice cracked just slightly. I smiled to myself. Glad to hear it. She went quiet. The kind of quiet that screams. That night, I left another note. Not a threat. Not even a message, really. Just 5 words scribbled in clean handwriting and placed exactly where I knew she'd look next. Sometimes the truth isn't buried deep enough. She found it the next morning in the fridge, taped to the milk. I watched her read it with shaking hands, her eyes wide, her lips barely moving as she whispered the words to herself. She never asked me about it. She didn't have to, because by now she knew. I wasn't asking for the truth. I was waiting for her to choke on it. After the note in the fridge, she wasn't the same. She moved like the house itself was haunted. Every creak in the floorboards made her jump. Every time I walked into the room, she'd tense up like she was bracing for impact. But I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse her. I didn't need to. She was already crumbling. I watched her closely. Not in a threatening way, but in that quiet, ever-present way that makes your skin crawl. I knew what she was doing before she did it. She stopped using the same hiding spots. Switched up her phone habits. Changed the password. Thought she was being clever. She wasn't. One night, she went to take a shower. I waited until I heard the water running and slipped into the bedroom. Her phone was tucked into the drawer under some receipts. I didn't touch it. Just looked at it long enough to let the thought linger in my head. She's hiding from me in our own house. I backed out and waited. She came out of the bathroom 10 minutes later, towel wrapped tight around her, eyes scanning the room a little too fast. And when she didn't see anything out of place, that was somehow worse for her. Because now, The fear wasn't if I knew, it was how much. She was scared of silence now, and I weaponized it. Mornings became robotic. She'd pass me the coffee without looking up. I'd say, "Thanks," and she'd flinch like the word was loaded. She tried so hard to act normal, asked how I slept, laughed at dumb shows on TV, complimented dinner like it meant something, but I saw through it all. It was performative. A desperate attempt to rewind the clock to a time before everything went wrong. But you can't go back. Not after that kind of betrayal. One night, I caught her standing in the hallway, staring at our family photo like it was a museum exhibit. Her eyes were glassy, her hands clenched. I didn't say anything. Just walked up behind her and stood there. She didn't turn around. Just whispered, "Everything okay?" "Yeah," I said softly. "Just thinking." "About what?" she asked. I smiled, though she couldn't see it. "Us." She didn't respond. Didn't move. Just stood there, frozen, as if the walls themselves were listening. That night, she barely spoke. Ate 3 bites of dinner and pushed the rest around on her plate like it might bite her back. Our son talked about school and cartoons, completely unaware of the storm quietly ripping through the room. After he went to bed, I found her in the kitchen washing the same dish over and over. The water was still running when I walked in. "You okay?" I asked casually. She jumped like she'd been electrocuted. "Yeah. Just tired." I nodded, leaned against the doorway, watching her hands shake under the stream. "Must be exhausting," I said. She didn't reply. Just kept scrubbing a plate that had been cleaned 10 minutes ago. Later that night, I woke up to find her side of the bed empty. I walked out into the hallway and found her in the kitchen, standing in the dark, just staring at the fridge. The light from the open door cast this weird glow over her face. She didn't even hear me walk up. When she finally turned around and saw me there, she flinched like I'd hit her. "You scared me," she breathed. "I live here," I said flatly. She tried to smile. Failed. And in that moment, I realized something. She wasn't afraid of me hurting her. She was afraid of what I might say. Of what I might do if I opened my mouth and told her what I knew. But I didn't. Because her silence, her guilt, it was doing all the damage I ever could. She was drowning. And I was just standing on the shore, watching her go under. By now, Emily was just a ghost of who she used to be. She moved around the house like a prisoner serving time in her own life, flinching at shadows, overthinking every word, her guilt clinging to her like a second skin. I didn't even need to speak anymore. I just had to be there. A presence. A weight. And that was enough to break her, slowly, piece by piece. I started noticing the little things she tried to control. She double-checked the locks, triple-checked her phone, whispered to herself when she thought no one could hear. One day, I walked into the room and caught her mid-sentence. She froze, like a kid caught sneaking out past curfew. "What were you saying?" I asked, keeping my voice light. "Nothing," she replied too quickly. She was unraveling, and doing everything she could to hide it. But the thing about guilt is it doesn't just sit quietly. It festers. It seeps into every corner. And eventually, it spills over. That night, I stayed up late. Couldn't sleep. Or maybe I just didn't want to. The house was quiet except for the ticking clock in the hallway and the soft hum of the fridge. Emily had gone to bed, or so I thought. But when I walked into the living room, there she was, sitting in the dark, knees tucked up to her chest, arms wrapped around them like she was trying to hold herself together. She didn't look up when I entered. "You should go to bed," I said, my voice low. She didn't respond. Just stared ahead. I stood there for a moment, unsure if she'd even heard me. Then finally she whispered, "Do you know?" I could have lied. I could have said, "Know what?" and dragged it out even longer. But I was tired. Not just physically. Tired of the dance. The lies. The silence. So I walked over to her, crouched down until we were eye to eye, and said, "I've known for a while." Her whole body trembled. "I found the test. The receipt. I've seen the way you look at me like I'm a bomb about to go off." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel bad. Not anymore. Not after all the nights I laid next to her while she played pretend, while she let me kiss her like everything was okay. I was going to tell you, she said, but even she didn't believe it. Were you? I asked. Or were you hoping it would all just go away? She looked down, lips pressed tight, hands gripping the sleeves of her sweater. I didn't know how. No, I said softly. You just didn't want to. I stood up and backed away. She stayed on the couch, frozen. And I realized, in that moment, I wasn't even angry anymore. I was done. Numb, maybe. Whatever feeling used to be between us had eroded, worn down by lies and fear and silence. We didn't talk much after that. She tried to act like things were normal again, but the truth had already burned through the foundation. I saw it in the way she moved, in how she spoke, in how she looked at me when she thought I wasn't paying attention. She knew I'd never see her the same again. And honestly, she was right. The worst part, I think she started hoping I'd yell. That I'd scream, throw things, demand answers, something. But I didn't give her that. I gave her silence. The kind that creeps into your bones and makes it hard to breathe. The kind that makes you question everything. Eventually, she stopped trying to fix it. She just existed. We went through the motions. Smiles for our son, quiet dinners, empty conversations. But the storm she feared, it wasn't coming anymore. It was already here. And we were both just standing in the wreckage. It happened on a quiet Saturday morning. I was in the kitchen, making pancakes, his favorite, with extra blueberries. The sun was pouring in through the window, warm and soft, like it was trying to pretend things were normal. Like it hadn't all fallen apart. Emily walked in. She wasn't wearing makeup. Her hair was tied back in a messy knot. She looked tired, but not broken. More like someone who had already grieved everything that was about to happen. In her hand was a folded sheet of paper. I've packed our things, she said. Not everything. Just what we need. I didn't say anything. She set the paper on the table. It was a custody agreement. Not court-issued. Something she wrote herself. I'm not going to fight you, she added. I think it's best if we go. For a while. For him. I looked at the hallway, where our son, Jackson, was sitting on the floor, playing with his toy cars. He was still wearing his pajamas, hair sticking up, completely unaware of the storm happening 10 feet away. You're taking him? I asked, my voice low. Emily nodded. Just for now. I'm not trying to take him from you. I need to get out of here. He feels everything. He hears things we don't say out loud. And he deserves better than a house full of silence. She was right. And that made it worse. I wanted to scream. To beg her to leave him here. But what would that make me? The man who'd let his own pain become more important than his child's peace? So I nodded. When? I asked. Today. She paused. Then said something I didn't expect. I still love you, Nick. But I don't love what I turned you into. And I don't love what I became in this house. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. I'll bring him back next weekend. I'm not running. I'm just giving us all air to breathe. I walked to the hallway and knelt down next to Jackson. Hey, buddy, I said, smoothing down his messy hair. You're going on a little trip with Mom, okay? Just for a bit. He looked up at me, curious but not scared. Will you come too? I swallowed hard. Not this time. But I'll see you really soon. He nodded like it was no big deal and went back to his cars. Emily watched from the doorway. And before she left, she turned to me one last time. I never meant to destroy us, she whispered. And I answered without hesitation. But you did. She closed the door behind her. And just like that, the silence finally meant something. Thank you for visited my YouTube channel. Your support, likes, and comments truly inspire me to create even more engaging content. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. You're a part of this amazing community, and I'm thrilled to share my stories with you. See you in the next video on YouTube.